Most acolytes of the Order of the Deep in Renacita spread the teachings of the Imperator in Morguna through words and wisdom, but Phoebe prefers a much more hands-on approach with her divine bonk.
It should have been me, not him!
And her release has invited some big competition in Withering Waves because Jinsei is one of the strongest resonators of the spectral element that we have in the game so far. So in this video, we're going to take a deep dive into Phoebe's kit and see if she's truly a worthy contender for Jinsei's spot as one of the most broken resonators in the game. I'll also be addressing the issue of which Echo Sonata effect significantly increases her overall damage and provide clear time differences for her best team options available so that you'll know which one will be most suitable for you depending on the characters that you have on your account when up against the Tower of Adversity or Wimpering Wastes. If you're new here on the channel, welcome to another video that belongs to the character breakdown series where I build and test your favorite resonators for a god-awful amount of time and show you how you can unlock their full potential. If you find this video informative or enjoyable in any way, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe and tell me who you want me to cover next. In today's video, I'm going to be covering her pros and cons, the basics of her kit, advanced tips that you can abuse, best build to play her with, and lastly optimize rotations for high damage numbers and faster clear times as much as possible. Before we proceed any further, here's a quick rotation showcase of the rotations that I'll cover in the optimized rotation section of this video. Keep in mind that her talents are not fully maxed out, so this is not even her true damage potential. Let's start with our pros and cons. Phoebe is incredibly easy to play with because her playstyle revolves around spamming your basic attacks and mixing in a heavy attack at the last stage of your basic attacks. This makes her super friendly for casuals, but players who are very good at timing their dodges perfectly can be rewarded with higher DPS because her forte basically rewards you with an enhanced heavy attack called Star Flash, which contributes to a higher percentage of her personal damage. Phoebe is also one of the few characters in the game that can take the role of a main DPS and a support because her kit is designed to do absurd levels of damage and provide supportive capabilities for spectral DPS characters depending on what state of her forte that she's in, which significantly increases her pro value because you basically get a character fit for 2 roles in the game for the price of 1. Phoebe also has access to many team options depending on the type of accounts that you have and how you choose to play her, so every player can do decent damage with Phoebe. For her cons or disadvantages, she's currently tied to Spectral Rover because her damage output increases significantly if the enemy is inflicted with the Spectral Frazzle negative effect. So until we get another character that applies the Spectral Frazzle debuff very easily on enemies, her best teammate will be Spectral Rover. Now let's get into the basics of her kit. There's a lot of information in here, so let me make it very simple. Let's begin with her skill. Casting her skill places a ring of mirrors on the ground. Enemies caught in the ring of mirrors will be slowed down, which reduces their aggression for a few seconds, allowing Pheobe to do damage. When you press her skill again, Pheobe can teleport into the ring of mirrors, and for a good reason. When Pheobe is in the ring of mirrors, her basic attacks get modified into Chamuel style basic attacks, considered as basic attack damage, which has a much higher scaling compared to the normal basic attacks, so you should always be in her ring of mirrors to do decent damage. That pretty much covers her skill, so let's get into her forte. This bar that you see right here is her primary forte bar called Prayer. The stacks refill with time, so you don't need any fancy intros to regenerate it like some other characters in the game. When Prayer is full, Pheobe can enter 2 states. Holding your basic attack will allow Pheobe to enter the Absolution state, inflicting 1 stack of Spectral Frazzle. In this state, her damage increases significantly, and the casting damage called Absolution Litany has a very good scaling. After casting Absolution Litany, Pheobe gains another type of stacks called Divine Voice, which grants her the ability to use a special heavy attack called Heavy Attack Star Flash, and you can use it after the 3rd stage of her basic attack sequence or after a dodge counter. In the Absolution state, Pheobe can perform 4 heavy attack Star Flash attacks with an increased scaling of 256% if the enemy has the Spectral Frazzle stacks on them. In this state, her Resonance Liberation, or the Divine Bonk as I like to call it, will also receive an additional scaling of 255%, and the outro skill will also receive the same amount of scaling, making her do crazy amounts of damage. But if you hold your resonance skill button instead when prayer is full, she'll enter the confession state and gain the same amount of divine voice forte stacks, but this time you can only do 2 heavy attack star flash and it does not get any additional scaling. This mode is meant to apply Spectral Frazzle stacks on the enemy, and it increases Phoebe's Concerto regeneration, making her a decent support for future Spectral DPS characters who will rely on the Spectral Frazzle negative effect to do decent damage. While Pheobe is in the confession state, if you outro to another character, Pheobe shreds the spectral resistance of nearby enemies by 10% and grants a 100% increase in Spectral Frazzle damage. But even with all these debuffs and Shimmer from Rover, which reduces the rate at which Spectral Frazzle stacks reduces 9.6k damage at 10 stacks every 5 seconds, is not that decent when you take DPS into consideration, so don't rely on this too much. Now let's get into the advanced tips section of this video. The first one is a mechanic that has been in the game for a long time. Since Pheobe needs to perform her 3rd basic attack sequence to be able to perform a heavy attack star flash, this mechanic can save you a bit of time. Just keep holding your basic attack button when the 3rd basic attack animation begins, and she will follow up with a heavy attack star flash. The next tip involves her Absolution Litany casting animation when you hold your basic attack button with full prayer stacks or primary forte stacks. The animation takes quite some time, but you can easily cancel it with a dash, or even better, her liberation, and the damage will still register on the enemy, so be sure to keep that in mind. The last advanced tip is to always dash towards the center of the Ring of Mirrors when up against aggressive enemies to prevent you from losing damage with time that comes from the Chamuel basic attacks, and the Ring of Mirrors lasts for 30 seconds, so summoning just one of them is enough to cover Phoebe's on-field time for doing decent damage. Now let's cover her team options. There are plenty of teams that you can play with Pheobe. The first team that I recommend is Shorekeeper, Spectral Rover, and Pheobe. Shorekeeper is here mainly for the crit damage buff, since crit rate is not an issue if you're running the Eternal Radiance set. Rover will be on the Moonlit set in this team to buff Phoebe's damage. The next team is Rover, Sanhua, and Pheobe. Rover will be on the Rejuvenating Glow set since her S4 will heal all team members after casting her liberation. Sanhua is here for the basic attack outro buff for increasing the Chamuel basic attack damage, and she will be on the Moonlit set to buff Phoebe's damage. The last team is Rover as a healer, Mortefi and Pheobe. Mortefi is here because of his heavy attack damage outro buff, which will make the heavy attack star flash hit much harder, and she'll be on Moonlit to buff Phoebe's damage. Now let's get into Pheobe's build. For the weapon options, when Pheobe casts her skill, it deals 2 instances of damage and procs all the 2 stacks of String Master. Using your skill again to teleport will refresh the stacks as well, so if you're on String Master, you always need to use 2 skill presses as an opener before you start doing damage. The same thing applies for Jeji's signature weapon, but you will get the second stack when Pheobe teleports to the Ring of Mirrors. If you have 2 of these weapons, but you can't afford to pull for Pheobe's signature, Jeji's signature weapon should be the top priority, mainly because of the high crit damage. The next best option is the Cosmic Ripples because of the basic attack buff from the passive, and is easy to activate because all you need to do is to perform basic attacks. The fourth best option is the Ocean's Gift, which everyone can get for free during the Old Man and the Whale event. The weapon will grant Pheobe 40% spectral damage at rank 5 when you start dealing damage to enemies, so it's a decent option. For the echoes, I tested Eternal Radiance and Celestial Light. The Divine Bonk damage for Eternal Radiance was 187k and the Celestial Light was 173k damage. The heavy attack Star Flash damage for the Eternal Radiance set was 39k and the Celestial Light was 34k. So it's clear Eternal Radiance set is the best option. But if you don't have a cracked set, you can just grab the Celestial Light on Jinxie and give it to Pheobe until you get a better 5-piece set. For the stats, the 4 cost will be crit rate or crit damage depending on what you're lacking, and the 3 cost will be double spectral damage bonus if you don't have her weapon, and attack and spectral damage bonus if you have her weapon. The 1 cost will be attack main stats. Now let's get into the rotations. We'll begin with the Shorekeeper team. Here's a simple graphical representation of what you need to do. We first begin with Shorekeeper's skill and swap to Rover. Generate 2 Forte stacks and then use her Forte skill. Swap back to Shorekeeper and fill full Forte stacks. If her Concerto energy has been filled to at least 75%, use her Liberation and Echo skill. Intro with Rover, heavy attack after tune combo, skill, Liberation and Echo skill. Intro with Pheobe, press her skill twice and use her Divine Bonk Liberation. Here, focus on using 2 heavy attack Star Flash, and as soon as the second one lands, swap to Rover and use her Forte skill. Ideally, I was supposed to cancel the animation of the second heavy attack Star Flash damage, so I wasted a little bit of time here. The reason you have to do this is to reduce Rover's fill time in the next rotation by just using skill and liberation, since Rover needs 2 skill cast and 1 liberation cast to be able to fill her Concerto energy. Cancel Rover's skill animation after the first stage and swap back to Pheobe. Do 2 heavy attack Star Flash and intro with Shorekeeper. Now repeat the rotation once again, but when you swap to Rover, you just need to use liberation and skill as I said earlier to fully fill her Concerto energy and outro from the field much quicker. For the Sanhua team, here is a simple graphical representation of what you need to do. For this team, we are not interested in the outro from Rover compared to the first team where she was on Moonlit. We first begin with Rover's heavy attack after tune combo and use her skill for the Spectral Resistance Shred. Use her Liberation to proc the healing, Echo skill, and then swap to Sanhua. Use a normal heavy attack to activate Sanhua's basic attack 5 animation, but cancel the animation with her Liberation. Use her Forte heavy attack, but when she disappears, cast her skill to instantly detonate all the ice. If you can't manage this, just use Liberation, skill, and Forte heavy attack. Use your Echo skill and intro with Pheobe. Press her skill twice, heavy attack, and cancel the animation with her Liberation. Echo skill, now do 4 Star Flash heavy attack and make sure to always dash to the center of the Ring of Mirrors so that you don't lose the basic attack damage from the Chamuel style basic attacks. Intro with Rover and perform a heavy attack after tune combo to generate some Forte stacks and use her skill to apply the Spectral Resistance Shred once again on the enemies. Use her Liberation, Echo skill, intro with Sanhua, but now you can spam her basic attacks to go straight into the basic attack 5 animation, but cancel the animation with her Liberation like we did earlier in the first rotation. Forte heavy attack, skill, Echo skill, and intro with Pheobe. Now repeat the rotation once again from the first rotation where we did not get Rover's outro. Keep in mind that you don't need Rover's outro, so only use it when it's available. All you need is her Forte skill cast for the Spectral Resistance Shred and her Liberation for the healing. Now let's get into the last team, which will be Mortefi's team. This team does not need the outro from Rover as well, so only use it when it's available, but don't spend time trying to regenerate a full concerto energy for Rover. For the Mortefi team, here is a simple graphical representation of what you need to do. We first begin with Rover's heavy attack after tune combo and use her skill, cancel the second slash animation by swapping to Mortefi to complete his basic attack 4 sequence. This helps him regenerate more concerto energy, so keep that in mind. Use his skill, but swap to Rover and use her liberation. Echo skill, swap back to Mortefi and complete another basic attack 4 sequence. Use his liberation before you use his forte skill for proper resonance energy recovery. Echo skill, intro with Pheobe, press her skill twice, heavy attack but cancel the absolution litany animation with her liberation. Echo skill, do 4 heavy attack style flash, but make sure to always dodge to the center of the ring of mirrors. Now intro with Mortefi, use his skill and forte skill. Swap to Rover, use a heavy attack after tune combo, skill, liberation, echo skill, and intro with Mortefi. Always use Mortefi's liberation first at this part of the rotation where his concerto energy is almost full, and do some basic attacks to get the forte skill. Use his forte skill and intro with Pheobe again. Now repeat the rotation once again. Per my testing, the strongest team according to the fastest clear time was the Shorekeeper team with a clear time of 1 minute 4 seconds. The second best team was the Sanhua team with a clear time of 1 minute 14 seconds. And the third best team was the Mortefi team with a clear time of 1 minute 16 seconds. The clear times would have been much faster if Pheobe was fully maxed out for all the teams, but at least this can provide a baseline of what you can expect with these team options. Thank you so much for watching, and consider liking the video and subscribing to help support the channel. If YouTube gets it right, you should like this video that pops up on your screen, so be sure to give it a watch and join our Discord community. If you're having any issues with the game or you just want a place to chill or hang out, link will be in the channel description. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.